Hi, my name is Sainandan Iyer, and welcome back to another episode of the podcast Your Goa Story. Today, we'll be in conversation with Jade D'Sa, who is a food and travel blogger.
The food goes beyond the Shakti and Vindaloo and Kafrial. Those are the three things that tourists know about Goa. There's so much more to that. When you come towards the villages or the south of Goa, that's when you kind of taste what Goan food is about. Visit to a few places such as the Goan kitchen in Miradouro, exploring Latin quarters. There are a lot of small little cafes, restaurants, bars. So it's become one of those places that if you come to Goa and you don't go, a certain restaurant in Bagator or a certain restaurant in Asagaon, and people go back, they're like, oh, you didn't go here. What did you do in Goa?
Yeah. Today we are at Cafe Miradouro, which is a bakery and a cafe near Panjim Church. And today we'll be in conversation with Jade D'Sa, who is a food and travel blogger, one of the earliest to start in this creative career in Goa. We'll be talking to her about her food and travel blogging, about her offbeat career, and how she has come so far, almost a decade in this career through her creative process. So, Jade, you go by the name That Goan Girl. So, tell us about your journey about blogging regarding food and travel in Goa.
Okay, so my journey started around 9 years ago. And this was way before Instagram, Reels, influencers, all of this was a thing. I just started because I had moved to Bombay from Goa after I graduated from St. Xavier's Malsa. I moved to Mumbai to study further, study management, and then to work. And since I was away from home, I didn't really have anything to do when I came back after work every day. So it was very monotonous, just coming home, watching TV. It was I felt that I needed something creative to do, especially since my job and my studies were very technical and very sales focused at that time.
Yeah.
So, and I always liked writing. So, I always loved writing as a child as well. So, I thought, let me start a blog. And I used to follow bloggers. There were very few, a handful in India at that time. So, I used to follow a lot of bloggers in the US, in Canada, the UK. So I started YouTubing, I started looking up on YouTube, how do I start a blog? What do I need? And then that's when there was just a way to occupy 2-3 hours of my time after coming back from work. So I set up my own blog, thatgoangirl.com. And the name also I thought of very randomly. I played around with a few names, but none of them I really liked. And again, since I was living away from home, I was eating out a lot. I was trying different recipes. That at that time, MasterChef was a big thing. So I used to watch MasterChef after coming back from work. And I thought, let me start documenting. It was just, like I said, I liked writing. So it was just documenting what I used to eat, where I used to go, because in Mumbai there's so much to see. I was a small village girl in a big city suddenly, so there was a lot to see. I used to go out on weekend getaways with friends from college, and I used to write about the hotels or the journeys that I tried. And it was a very small start. I never thought that I would stick with it for so many years. And although a lot has evolved from 9 years ago now, almost 10 years, it's been a fun journey.
Yeah. So it looks like you've come like a long distance from where you started to where you are. And it looks like you started very early on, like in terms of blogging and social media. So honestly, I would be a very average cook at best and certainly no culinary connoisseur like you are. So can you tell us what all that is about?
So, like I said, since I was from Goa and I lived with family in Goa at that time in college, and even now, in fact, I never really had to cook. So I hardly stepped into the kitchen when I was in school or college or whatever. But when I moved to Mumbai, I was suddenly exposed to a lot. And 9 years ago, food scene was very different.
Yes.
We had like a handful of restaurants, and we used to go to restaurants only if there was an occasion, like a birthday or somebody invited you. It's not like today where, every weekend we're like, where to go, what's new. But in Bombay, at 9 years ago, it was like that. There was something new opening something shutting, something opening, new cafes, new concepts. So that's why I say that I'm not a cook or even a
Culinary connoisseur.
yeah, I'm not a culinary connoisseur, but I liked trying out different things and experimenting with different foods, textures, and the creativity that it's in Bombay at that time. Food was not just a way to eat;
Correct.
it was an experience, which is now what is we are. Like people go out not just because it's Indian food, but because there's a twist on Indian food or the ambience or the experience or the cocktails, it's a whole experience that comes along with writing now. So that's why I wrote that line.
So if you had to suggest like an essential travel and food guide for anyone in Goa or visiting Goa, what would be some of your top recommendations? Even a few places would be.
Um, so I think how Goa is right now is people come to Goa already with a checklist in their mind. So it's become one of those places that if you come to Goa and you don't go to uh, a certain restaurant in Magator or a certain restaurant in Asagaon, and people go back, they're like, oh, you didn't go here. What did you do in Goa?
Yeah.
But it's limited to a very few places, but I feel Goa has so much more to offer. There's so much of Goan food that is beyond the beach belt. The beach belt is the Goan food or the Indian food is tweaked to tourist palates.
Yes.
But when you come towards the villages or the south of Goa, that's when you kind of taste what Goan food is about.
Yeah.
So I would suggest definitely a visit to a few places such as the Goan Kitchen in Margao. Or also they also have a, a dining experience in their kitchen in Lutolin, which the food goes beyond the Shakti and Vindaloo and Kafrial. Those are the three things that tourists know about Goa. There's so much more to that. So I think that's one experience that one must do. Also maybe exploring Latin quarters. There are a lot of small little cafes, restaurants, bars that people should kind of go to.
So I think people who are interested will be noting down all of this. And like you said, I feel more like the hidden gems are the ones which are more quality rather than the popular ones who are all over the social media.
Yes.
So like you say, it's better to discover the hidden gem. So Jade, when it comes to these new and up and coming restaurants in this food scene in Goa, do you think they focus more on the social media aspect or on giving making quality food?
I think most of them today, honestly, are focused on social media.
Okay.
I think the food is secondary. If you look at what social media is and even what Instagram says that it should be, or Meta in general, it's supposed to be about sharing authentic moments.
Yeah.
Not. And if you see today, most of the content produced by up and coming restaurants are heavily edited, heavily produced, shot. There's production teams that are brought in from Mumbai, Delhi, and all of that. And there's very little real life that you can capture or that is shown. You rarely see the behind the scenes or what a typical day is like. Whereas if you see in I don't know, like I said, like I keep researching what other restaurants are doing. If you look at restaurants in London or US, Canada, and all of that, there's very little few trends that they follow. But in Goa, every restaurant wants to do what another restaurant is doing, and they are doing this, and they've grown, and their reel is viral. Why am I not viral? And it's more like an online competition, but not really focused on the food. The food, I think, comes second or third in the list of priorities. Whereas there's so many more things like, if you have a really cool bartender who likes to talk to people, you don't see the bartender talking to people in the reel.
Yes.
You see him making fancy cocktails and this lighting and editing and all of that. So I think there needs to be a fine balance between authenticity and creativity. It doesn't have to be, everyone's doing it, so I do it, which is sadly what Instagram has become, or social media promotions have become these days.
So you're not impressed by these fancy looking dishes and drinks, which are they look good for Instagram, but who knows, they may not even taste.
No, presentation is very important. I think that's one of the aspects that restaurants should focus on. But I think in terms of how they portray themselves online, it should be less about the trends and less about the the fireworks and more the proof is in the eating.
Pudding.
Yeah.
So that's how it should be. Yeah. Okay, so be honest. What's the one thing that you absolutely hate when it comes to working with your clients, especially like, let's say, your marketing, or even in the blogging aspect?
I think hate is a strong word, but I think both the things I do, that goangirl.com as well as my ATC, it's something that I really enjoy. So when you really like something, I mean, for every occupation and industry, I'm sure there's something that no occupation is all perks and no downsides. But I think in terms of food, or in terms of social media, what I don't like in terms of influencing is that it's perceptions. Again, I like what I do, but the perceptions that people have, like, you eat out all the time, or you just, like even now, even family members of mine, they don't know that I have a business, or that we're a team of 15 people, and we handle so many accounts across the world. It's just about, oh, what's the next nice place? What are the new places to eat?
Yeah.
Where have you gone to recently? Those are the kind of conversations that people keep asking. So I think, passion should be treated as that. Like, no one ever asks you, hey, what are some of what are some great campaigns you did, or what are some of your successes? It's always about, where did you go last weekend? So it seems like it's trivializing, uh, you know, both aspects of because it's not just about going and eating at different places. It's a lot more to it.
So finally, Jade, what are the pros and cons of setting up such an offbeat, successful business, especially at a young age? Like you started almost 10 years back. So what do you think are the pros and
Pros
cons?
and cons. The pros are definitely that I feel I've gained a lot of experience, a lot more than what people who had started today have. Today, although that could be one of the pros as well. Like, somebody who starts today,
Yeah.
it's so easy for them to grow because that's how the Instagram algorithm, or that's how Facebook is, or even if there's a restaurant for that matter. Like, just to give you an example, like if you see a 100-year-old restaurant,
Yeah.
and a new restaurant, the new restaurant will pull the crowd. The 100-year-old restaurant is still struggling to survive, and I feel it's the same um for social media as well, for influencing as well. Like, a new creator just has to do a funky dance, and they will get like millions of followers. Whereas there are people who speak value, who bring a lot to the table, who are just staggering along.
Yeah.
So I feel that is one of the cons. In terms of the pros, um, I think those who start out early and stick with it for so long, there is a certain amount of um, like a certain amount of prestige or recognition that you get, that somebody who started, even 6 months ago doesn't enjoy. There are thousands of people who started 6 months ago, but there's a handful of people who started 10 years ago. So I think that kind of recognition and appreciation for sticking with something for so long is recognized. So that's one of the pros.
And I'm sure that since you've done it for so long, I think you've done well both ways in terms of content as well as the quality of the content that you produce. So thank you so much, Jade, for such an interesting and incisive interview. I'm sure our audience will love your perspective and the way that you have gone about with your career, whether it's your blogging, the food and travel, or the marketing part. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sai.
If you liked today's podcast with Jade D'Sa about food and travel blogging, please subscribe to Gomantak Times YouTube channel, your gateway to Goa.